Last week I mentioned that everyone has a book in them. That's true whether it's a piece of fiction meant to entertain readers, a how-to meant to give guidance, or in this week's example, a memoir meant to share how one woman worked through her early in life crisis and came out the other side both changed and stronger for it. Experiencing crises in our lives usually leaves us with a sense of brokenness. I've experienced a couple myself, and it's always inspirational to read how someone else got through theirs. I'm your host, Garrett K. Jones, and this week for Author Awareness August, I'm interviewing memoirist Ruby Carlson. Hey, happy Saturday and welcome to my channel. If you're new, glad to have you, and if you're a returning viewer, glad to have you back. You can become a channel supporter through Patreon and the merch store. Both are going to be linked down in the video description, and of course I'll talk more about those options towards the end of the video. Now, the fastest, the easiest, and the coolest way for you to support what we do here is by becoming a channel subscriber. So click the subscribe button and make sure to hit the bell for notifications on new videos. We are now 3 episodes into Author Awareness August 2022, and I'm excited to see how this marathon does. Last week's episode with Jason Arkoivu was a fantastic addition to this year's playlist because it shakes up the kind of books viewers get exposed to on this channel. Now, if you didn't get a chance to watch last week's video, I have it tagged right up here, and it will be linked at the end of the video. Of course, if you are a subscriber on Patreon, you can find a full version of the interview live there. Finally, next week, August 27th, is not only going to be the last episode for Season 4, and for Author Awareness August, it is also going to be the date of my 4th live stream for my library lecture series. On that Saturday, I will be broadcasting live from the Kings County Library in Hanford, California, and I will be doing a discussion on character creation, character development, with an emphasis on writing hero and protagonist and villain antagonist characters. I would love for you to join me for that event. The broadcast will go live on Instagram at 1 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. I connected with this week's interviewee after seeing an interview she gave on Central Valley Talk, which is a local news broadcaster. The host, Adam Reed, and I talked about getting her on this show, and he provided contact information, and we got it all worked out. And so here is the interview. I hope that you get a lot out of it. How you doing?
I am fantastic. Thank you so much for having me.
You're very welcome. Very welcome. So tell me about what it is that you write. What books have you put out lately?
Okay, so what I have in my little repertoire right now is the beginnings of a pseudo memoir trilogy. And book 1 is Ignite, book 2 is Wildfire, and then what I'm working on right now, whenever I have the time, is book 3. The whole purpose of this being to take readers kind of to and through this process of like sort of changing your life and taking the whole exercise of memoir and using it for that very means. But not in the simple way that we all would like to think, that it's just like beautiful little, oh, it's easy, we're writing memoir and we're gonna get better. But no, like the gritty.
I like that idea of the transformative process behind it, and I think the theme that you're going with the flame and the fire, I think that's really a neat metaphor for transformation that takes place. I mean, I live in Central California, where I'm a couple hours from Sequoia National Park, and
oh Lord.
And one of the things I've learned about a lot of the trees up there, especially with the giant sequoias, is that fire is a necessary thing. It clears out all the unnecessary underbrush and creates a lot of
nutrient-rich soil for the trees to grow, and then allows for the pine cones to scatter the seeds out where they need to go.
Absolutely. I have been just doing a little research about, okay, how do I want to name book 3? Because, we've been going with the fire theme. So in the third book, it needs to be what good comes after, something sort of ignites it and has that. And ephemeral was the first thing that's come to mind. And I'm not 100% convinced I'm sticking with that. But ephemeral is actually a word for what comes right after a fire. And it's the little like plants that grow and like these things that start the narration that comes from the fire. And I love that because it does. I've had a lot of people say when it comes to like midlife crisis or those transformative moments in your life where all of a sudden everything that you've been working really hard for comes to this hard end. It's like this unraveling, and it does. It feels like you're just undoing everything that you've ever done. And it's a fire. It's like your whole life just sort of changes direction. And I can't think of any better way to give it, like a metaphor besides fire. Yeah. But it's amazing how we look back at the things that we were creating and you're so committed. Because even now when I have done the first 2 books were things that I was very into writing, and the third book is so much more of the healing and the resolution and finally the sitting down and making sense of all of the crap that comes before. And I sit down and I'm like, oh, this is hard.
Yeah.
I get a couple pages in and I'm like, I think I need to take a break. And we have these grand ideas, right? And then it's all of a sudden like,
Well, I've always found that it's always challenging to write, but it's even more challenging when you're writing about yourself and you're actually opening that box and we're sharing, because like the last 20 years, social media and the internet have kind of trained people to show this version of themselves as the best version. Or in some cases, you see people who are showing the worst version of themselves, depending on which avenue you're taking. But no one is actually wanting to see all the stuff that comes in between that. And that exploration gets really scary, because then you're having to go back and relive things that you would much rather keep in the vault of things that you do not speak. So the question I have for you now is, how did you get into writing? Because it from what it sounds like you've been planning this book series for a while. But I'm kind of curious about what your story is.
Well, so ever since I was a little girl, I was a writer. It was just like, that was the thing inside of me. I remember being like a 3rd grader and I would write poetry, and I had my teacher loved this poem I wrote so much that she like laminated it in that beautiful whatever, back when we were 3rd graders, but they would put on and it was on the door of my 3rd grade classroom like the whole year. It was always one of those things that I did, but for me, it was never a thing that I was going to become a professional at, I don't know why. I just don't ever feel like I felt supported in that. And so I became a dentist, right? Like for real. And 8 or 9 years into my career as being a dentist, I hit this really, really hard wall of understanding that the things that were like these really, really key pieces of me had been ignored in order to satisfy these really great professional requirements that were, they were admirable things. And I'm not going to discredit everything I had done up to that point, but I will definitely say that in order to do that, the parts of me that were the most sincere and real parts of me, I completely ignored them. I was like, you're going to die because you're not important and you're not going to make me money. And then I was like, well, no, I cannot do that anymore. And so I reached a point where I was like, I'm going to write a book and I don't care what effect that has on me personally, professionally. That is the only thing I want to do. And if a voice inside of me is so convicted, because I couldn't do anything else. You see, they show crazy writers who get obsessed with something and they like retreat into the wall and they just depict things, and that was me. And I knew that if the conviction was there to that degree, I had to obey. So that was honestly how I got into writing, which you read all of these things about querying agents and they're like, never tell them you had to write a book. And I'm like, well, I did, it just was what it was. And so that was honestly, I've always wrote. I was always writing through college and even in dental school. Like I wrote for my dental school paper. Like that was the side of me that was just the little part that I explored. But when I finally sat down to write a book, it was actually me denying everything else that I had done with my life and saying, guess what? I'm also this.
That's awesome. You talked about some of your inspirations, poetry, and obviously writing a memoir. You're sharing your story out there for readers to take a look at and learn from your experience and the things that the fears and the things that you had to overcome both in your personal and professional life. What are some of your other inspirations? What do you draw from?
Oh man. Okay. So I love the witty, sarcastic works. I love the things that people read that really sort of make you laugh, make you think, expand your horizons. And while you're sort of getting this like life lesson that really is going to genuinely sort of blow your mind, you're going to absorb it in such a way that it doesn't hit you emotionally, right? Because I come from a very religious background. So a lot of times anything that's going to make you think outside of the box is going to also, like, people will be reticent, right? They're going to hold off and they're like, I can't do this. So you have to sugarcoat it. You have to deliver it in a package that it's like, it slips it in there, right?
Yeah.
That's my goal, is to write something where people they're empathizing with the character. They're laughing. They're going along for the ride. And all the while where they're like, yeah, this is happening. And they're okay with it. They are starting to envision possibilities and ways of life that they would have been like, oh, hell no. It's really not, for me, there were so many things I was like, if I do this, I will die. I felt that way just because of the religious background that I came from. So I wanted to present scenarios that like challenged people, but then gave them the empathy and the sort of the background of a character that was like, no, there's reason for people to go this far. And there is situations that maybe we thought, were horrible that actually aren't. So like my biggest inspirations and things that I draw on is the way that people will present that subject matter in such that we like, oh, it's okay. I love humor and sarcasm. So
you've talked about some of the difficulty that you've had with coming together and putting together your inspirations and your writing and all that. But what are some of the other challenges that you've faced?
Oh gosh. Okay. So, I've always wanted to publish this, and I've always wanted to feel as though it like came off of my hands and went into the hands of a real, genuine publisher, right? That the publishing part of this was definitely my biggest challenge, and learning to navigate that world and learning to like accept that I really am a writer, because it probably took me about 3 years of actually having finished this work to some degree and then now taking it to the finish line that it's seeing today, before I as a human being could look a person in the eye and be like, yes, I am a writer. There is a game in this world where we all feel like crap until a publisher looks upon us with their like, oh, all beaming, and then they take our work under their wing. And now where I'm at, like finally that hasn't happened and I've just like accepted it and put it out there on my own volition, it's so rewarding. But those years interspersing from then to now, I went through, I learned who I am, right? Like that's when you figure out some things and you learn to say, my ugly is my ugly, and that person might not like it, and this person might love it, and this is going to benefit, and that's not going to benefit, and I don't care. And putting it out there. That whole journey to just taking my work and saying, you know what? You're going to like it, you're going to hate it, and I don't care what anybody else says about it. I am so committed to the work that I'm putting it out there anyways. That was my biggest struggle.
What are some pet peeves that you have as a writer?
Oh my gosh. Okay.
How much time do we
Let's see. I know, right? I honestly, I just don't like bad writing, bad like stories when it is just grotesque for the sake of grotesque, or we're doing something and it feels like you're beating a dead horse. There are times when you're just like, this isn't real. And you're the storyline within 2 chapters, you're like, this is why. Nobody cares. And I am a lover of all things. And I literally have another interview that I did where I was talking about, like, I'm a cheerleader. I love to always tell people, like, you're doing great, you're doing great. But I have certainly got into books and I'm like, you're not doing great. Like, you're amazing because people love you and you have like this thing or there's something going on, but you completely miss the of human emotion and reality. Like and so that to me, I mean, I can get away with bad writing and bad grammar and you know, those things, but when you just don't touch what is genuine in the human experience, that's where you lose me. That's my biggest pet peeve.
I'm one of those readers where, like, if I'm not grabbed by the end of the first chapter, I'll put a book down. Like, I read The Hobbit in 7th grade, and I just read it again with the students I teach this last fall. But as a reader, I could not get through the entirety of The Lord of the Rings because of how dry it was and how it was not fun. One of my best friends, he is a huge fan of all things Tolkien. He's basically my go-to Tolkien expert, and he's still he's still bothered by the fact that 20 years since the movies have come out, I still haven't read the entirety of The Lord of the Rings. I've seen the movies multiple times, but I couldn't tell you who Tom Bombadil is or why he even matters. And this is one of my best friends, and he's just like, how are we friends? Final question, if you had any advice for other would-be authors out there, what would you tell them?
My same thing, don't quit. Do not quit. This is not easy, and you're going to start it and you're going to feel excited and you're going to be this like, I'm going to write, and then a little while later you're like, oh my God, what was I thinking? And like you said, 7 years ago you published your book. 20 years ago you were drawing these characters. This isn't a whim or a moment in your life. This is a lifestyle, and when you're called to it, you're called to it. And it's going to suck a lot. And I mean, let's get all David Goggins on this. Like, stay hard. Like, you have to stay the course. You're going to not like it the vast majority of the time. But if you're a writer, you know you're a writer. That's it.
It's been great to have you. How can people get a hold of your books, the ones that are currently out?
I am on Instagram mostly, so you can find me at Marie's World of Writing there. I do also have a web page, Marie's World of Writing. My books are digital right now. I am a self-published author, so everything is on Amazon. One of these days, I hope to get myself a little more, in bookstores and all of that. But if we get enough readers on Amazon, then we'll get the reviews up and I can start getting myself out into those stores. But that's where I am right now. I'm on Twitter as Marie's World of Writing. I'm pretty much Marie's World of Writing, Twitter, Facebook, Instagram.
Thank you for being on the show. It's been a great pleasure getting a chance to talk with you and get to know you a little bit better.
This was awesome as well. My pleasure. Thank you so much for having me.
If you're interested in connecting with Ruby through her social media, or if you're interested in collecting a copy of her work, those links can be found down in the video description, and I hope that her memoirs help provide you with some inspiration. Hey, thanks for watching. Please hit like and subscribe. If you'd like to support this channel, you can do so on Patreon through one of 3 affordable support plans. Patrons get access to blooper reels, behind-the-scenes videos, and much more. You can also buy sweet merch from my store on Teespring, which you can then turn around and rep on Instagram and Twitter by tagging me at GKJ_publishing and using the hashtag 5kingdomsmerch. Or you can sign up for the free poster giveaway. All links are down in the video description, and I'll be announcing a winner for the poster when I hit 200 YouTube subscribers. Please make sure to tune in next week for the final interview of the 2022 Author Awareness August Marathon, featuring podcast and media host Lisa Autry. The vlog of the Five Kingdoms is filmed without the use of a live audience at Skyrocket Studios in Hanford, California. We can't do what we do without your help, so please make sure to subscribe by clicking the button that's above my head, and make sure to watch and share the videos over here to my left. Have a great week.